He was a pathetic, lonely loser who used to lead the strongest clan, but people saw him as worthless, just like you. However, he accidentally started rizzing girls without even realizing it. But since he was buried in billions of debt, he had no choice but to keep rizzing more girls to pay it off. The story kicks off with a bunch of ugly kids chasing their dream of becoming treasure hunters. In this world, treasure hunters search ancient ruins called vaults, hoping to score valuable items and powerful relics. But it's not easy. These places are filled with terrifying monsters known as phantoms, and hunting them means risking your life every time you step inside. We're introduced to a pathetic, lonely boy named Cry, who's heading to a recruitment event. One of the top hunting groups, known for being the strongest, is looking for new members. While waiting in the huge line of applicants, a girl named Ruta walks up to him and introduces herself. She explains that she's always hunted alone, but after getting overwhelmed in a vault called White Wolf's Den, she realized she might need to join a team. A nearby ugly hunter named Greg butts in and says there's no way she could handle a place like the Den on her own, especially as a level 3. He calls her a rookie and claims there's no chance she'll make it into First Steps, the most elite clan in the city. Ruta gets ticked off and argues that the clan doesn't have any restrictions for joining. She even pulls out her daggers, ready to throw hands. But before anything can happen, someone from the guild steps in and tells them to chill. Causing trouble will just get them disqualified. Ruta's amazed to see so many people around since she's never been to something this huge before. Cry casually mentions it's actually his 5th time here. The First Steps clan isn't just one team, it's made up of multiple groups. Cry brings up the Arc Brave squad, saying they're the most powerful ones in the clan. Apparently, the 6 of them cleared a level 7 vault, which is a big deal. Cry explains that if the leader of Arc Brave, Arc, accepts someone into his team, that person is guaranteed success. But it's rare, they haven't recruited anyone from these interviews before. Ruta notices a table sitting all by itself and asks Cry about it. Greg interrupts again, saying that's the Griever table meant for the founder of First Steps. Cry thinks back to how the Grieving Souls squad, a party made of his childhood friends, came to the capital a few years back and quickly became one of the most talked about teams in the business. Greg says it's a big deal because it's the first time in years that the Grievers are open to recruiting, so naturally, hunters are flooding in for the chance. Suddenly, a loud guy named Gilbert starts yelling, asking where the Grievers are. He's already a level 4 and clearly full of himself. A girl named Tino immediately shuts him down, saying he's not even close to worthy. She's confident she should be the one joining the Grieving Souls. Things heat up as everyone gathers to watch the fight. But before it starts, Cry tells Ruta they should dip before things get messy. As Gilbert charges his weapon, Tino suddenly spots Cry and runs straight toward him, calling him master. It turns out Cry is actually the leader of the Grieving Souls and the boss of the First Steps clan. We flash back to when Cry and his close friends first arrived in the capital. They were brand new but quickly smashed through beginner vaults faster than anyone else. In one scene, Cry is almost eaten by a monster but gets saved just in time by one of his teammates. They jokingly praise him for being bait, but in truth, he was clueless and didn't even notice the monster. Cry always felt out of place around his ultra-talented friends. While they were basically prodigies, he thought of himself as average and believed he'd only slow them down. He figured they were just too nice to admit he was weak, so he made up his mind to leave the group. But when he told them, they flipped the script and asked him to become their leader instead. Back in the present, Cry casually tells Arc he was late because he overslept. Arc laughs it off, assuming Cry is just spying on the crowd. Tino, on the other hand, seems annoyed and wants Arc kicked out. Arc asks if Cry found any promising candidates, and Cry says he thinks the team's already full. But he still asks if Arc would accept someone if he vouched for them. Arc says he completely trusts Cry's picks, but one of the girls on his team clearly doesn't like that. Tino assumes Cry is about to recommend her and says she'd rather stick with him than join another party. Gilbert interrupts again, and Cry questions if he's even part of another team. Gilbert says it doesn't matter. Cry thinks Gilbert is kind of useless right now, but maybe with training from Arc's team, he could become strong. Cry admits to himself that he's terrible at spotting talent, so picking someone is basically a gamble. He explains that being a hunter is more about determination than raw skill. He challenges Gilbert to prove he has the guts, because weak teammates can endanger everyone. Cry then stuns the crowd by saying he's never lost a fight since becoming a hunter. Gilbert is shocked, but it's just because Cry has never actually had a real fight. Cry takes off his ring and throws it into the crowd, saying whoever brings it back will be recommended to Arc. Gilbert catches it, but Tino immediately launches him with a flying kick. Chaos breaks out as the hunters start battling for the ring. Cry says it's actually a relic and decides to award it to whoever earns it. The next day, Eva, the vice leader of First Steps, tells Cry he ended up on the front page of the newspaper thanks to that insane brawl over the ring. Cry worries civilians might have gotten hurt, but Eva says everyone's fine. However, the Explorers Association did call in about it. Cry asks if Ark saw the article, and Eva says he just laughed. Cry tells her to send the repair bill to him. Eva scolds him for depending too much on Ark and says the association wants to speak to him. If he skips the visit, the chief will personally show up. Cry doesn't want to go, his bodyguard's gone, and his disguise relic is broken. Eva says he'll be safe during the day. So Cry goes to the association and immediately starts apologizing to Chief Gark, who tells him to chill. The girl calms him down and hands him a book. Gark says even though no official complaint was filed, a top clan like First Steps needs to set a better example. Cry knows the association handles tons of missions, but some have either terrible pay or are insanely risky, so no one wants them. These unpopular jobs get treated like garbage work. Cry realizes Gark wants him to take one of those missions, and he agrees since he owes Gark a favor, though he still says he didn't do anything that bad. Gark lets him pick any mission. Cry flips through the book and picks a level 3 rescue task that looks simple. But after he leaves, Gark is impressed, thinking Cry picked the hardest job on purpose. Cry heads off to give the mission to Ark, but Tino says he's not around and the others are also tied up. She shows him she ended up keeping his ring and looks happy, thinking he wants to spend time with her. Though when Cry brings up the mission, she bolts. Cry uses a summoned creature to catch her, and she complains that instead of fun, he's roping her into doing chores. She says she's only level 4 and can't rescue 5 people by herself. She gets more annoyed when Cry calls in Gilbert and the others to help her. We go back 6 years earlier when Cry and his team first arrived at the Explorers Association to register as a party. Cry was too nervous to go inside, scared he'd drag everyone down. But his friend Luke kicks open the door and loudly brags that he's the world's best swordsman, and he fights with a wooden sword since, according to Cry, a real warrior doesn't need a weapon. Inside, the receptionist asks Cry to choose a team name and symbol. They hadn't thought of one, so she warns him that whatever name he picks will represent their group's identity. Cry tries to sabotage it on purpose and picks Grieving Souls to prove he's a bad leader. Everyone hates the name since it sounds super depressing for a hero squad. But after a moment, they all say it's actually kind of cool, just so Cry won't leave the team. Back in the current timeline, Greg is still trying to process the fact that Cry is actually the head of the entire clan. He's totally stunned when it hits him. Cry is a level 8 treasure hunter who's earned the title 1000 Tricks. Meanwhile, Gilbert flat out refuses to believe it. He doesn't buy that this guy, who looks more like a lazy dude who overslept, could possibly be the most powerful hunter in the city. Tino instantly says she has no interest in teaming up with someone like Gilbert, calling him all bark and no bite. But deep down, Cry quietly admits that he's not much better, he's also mostly talk. Cry asks if they're both willing to take on the mission, but Gilbert ignores him completely, saying he doesn't follow anyone weaker than himself. Cry just shrugs and decides to leave Gilbert out. But right as Cry is about to walk away, Gilbert challenges him to a fight. He says if Cry beats him, he'll join the mission, because he refuses to take orders from someone he sees as beneath him. But Cry tells him to fight Tino instead. She's the one leading the team, so it's her he has to prove himself to. Gilbert grumbles that he underestimated her the last time they fought, but this time he's ready. He still plans to fight Cry afterward, once he beats her. Cry casually mentions that Tino is also level 4, and Tino adds that while she's nowhere near Cry's level, she's not about to lose to Gilbert. To avoid any deadly accidents, Tino tosses her weapons aside, which makes Ruta nervous. Greg watches and comments that if they go head to head, Gilbert has the advantage because Tino is a thief-type hunter. But Cry knows better. Even if they're the same level, Tino's got way more battle experience. He thinks the fight will come down to how Gilbert uses his purgatory sword. But to everyone's surprise, Gilbert throws the sword aside, saying he doesn't need a blade to take down an unarmed girl. Tino makes a cheeky bet. If she wins, Cry has to take her out for ice cream. He can't say no when he sees her determined face. The fight kicks off, and Tino rushes in fast. Gilbert dodges her first move, but she hits him with a powerful kick that launches him across the area. Gilbert gets up, refusing to quit, and goes for a punch. Tino easily flips him into a leg lock and calmly says she's holding back. Then she slams him in the back of the head, knocking him out cold. Greg and Ruta are completely shocked. They didn't expect her to be that strong. While lying there, Gilbert starts thinking about his past. Back when he was a kid, he was stronger than everyone else. He joined a group after moving to the capital and kept clearing vault after vault, thinking he was unbeatable. Tino tells him if he's serious about fighting, he should use his weapon. When he refuses, she warns that his pride will only get him killed. That hits him hard. He realizes that if this were a real fight, he'd already be dead. Cry reflects on how Gilbert left his old group because their skills weren't on his level. He admits he went through something similar with his own party, but instead of ditching him, his friends chose to stay by his side. Gilbert is amazed that even though the grieving souls are the strongest hunters around, they still show kindness instead of arrogance. Cry gently kicks Gilbert's sword, and suddenly it lights up, blazing with power. Gilbert is stunned. Cry didn't even touch it, and yet he activated stronger flames than Gilbert ever could. We find out that the world's base element is something called mana material. It's invisible but exists everywhere. Treasure vaults are built from dense mana material, and the White Wolf's Den is one of them. That's where Cry sent Tino and her team. The vault came into existence after a powerful wolf species called the Silver Moon was wiped out. Now, their lingering energy gave birth to a phantom in the form of a full-blooded wolf. Cry secretly thinks the place is terrifying, but he believes the team can handle it since they're around the right level. Eva, the vice leader, asks Cry about the Purgatory Sword. He says it's so simple that even Gilbert, who doesn't know much about relics, could still get it to work. Cry even considers buying it off him, but Eva warns him not to waste money on something he doesn't need. He argues that each relic is unique, but she tells him to manage his spending better, especially since every member of the Grieving Souls earns the same pay, even if they don't contribute much on hunts. Later, Cry realizes he forgot to recharge one of his relics. He heads to a shop where a girl helps him top it up. While there, a man warns him about a rogue level 3 phantom that recently wiped out an entire caravan on the northern highway, even though the caravan had 3 level 3 hunters protecting it. The phantom took the shape of a wolf and came from the White Wolf's Den, which makes Cry nervous. The man says phantoms are getting more dangerous, and the Hunter Association is thinking about changing how they rank them. A few days ago, another team led by a level 5 hunter named Rudolph went missing. Cry flips back through the mission details and suddenly panics. He missed the part saying the people they're supposed to rescue are all level 5. Everyone is stunned when Cry admits he sent Tino into that death zone. Outside, Cry tries to convince himself they'll be okay, especially since Gilbert has the Purgatory Sword. But then he realizes Gilbert might not have recharged it after the last fight. Meanwhile, Tino tells the group that this mission won't be easy. She says Cry personally assigned it to them, which is why she even wrote a will before heading out. The group believes he must have picked them carefully, but in truth, Cry just picked names at random. Cry keeps telling himself they can always pull out if it gets too dangerous, but he also knows Tino won't back down no matter what, so he decides to catch up to them and ask Ark to take over the mission when they return. He unlocks a hidden chamber and grabs a bunch of relics, pausing at one particular safe. Eva spots him sneaking out and knows he's worried. She's surprised to see he took the Citri slime relic, which is banned, but Cry assures her it's not illegal. Still, he's running low on mana, so he packs it just in case. He uses another relic to fly out of the city. Eva watches him go and worries. The relic is hard to control and very risky. Meanwhile, Tino and the team get ambushed by a phantom, but it's different. This one has armor and is carrying a sword. Tino stays focused, determined to live up to Cry's expectations. We flash back to the Grieving Soul's early days, where Luke is stunned after his sword breaks while fighting a phantom. After bragging about beating a Cyclops, a drunk man nearby laughs at them, until they show him the Cyclops' actual eyeball. Back in the present, Tino's group manages to beat the armored wolf, but they're shocked a creature that strong was in a level 3 vault. Greg asks Gilbert why he didn't use his flame attack. Gilbert admits the sword is out of mana, meaning Cry must have drained it earlier. Ruda suggests they pull back, and Greg worries the people they were sent to rescue are already gone. But Tino refuses to abandon the mission. She believes everything is unfolding just as Cry expected. She tells Gilbert Cry probably let the sword run out of mana on purpose, to show him not to rely on it too much. They come across more wolf phantoms. Gilbert takes charge and says if he handles the ones with ranged weapons, the others will be easier. Tino calls him an idiot, but he says even without mana, the Purgatory Sword is better than a regular weapon. Tino insists she's the one in charge, and she's not going to let anyone die on her watch. She comes up with a plan. She and Ruda will draw the wolves' attention while Greg and Gilbert strike from behind. She promises she'll never use anyone as a human shield. But elsewhere, Cry is silently hoping that if someone has to survive, let it be Tino, even if it means using the others to protect her. They defeat the wolves, and Tino notes that even though the enemies are stronger, their teamwork gives them an edge. She's impressed by how well the team is working together, even though they barely knew each other before this mission. She starts to think maybe Cry planned it all. Suddenly, they're ambushed again. While fighting, Gilbert remembers the time he left his old party. He realizes they were doing their best, and he never truly appreciated them. Working with Greg, he finally lands a clean hit and feels proud to be part of a solid team. Tino senses the boss nearby, and Greg wonders if they should retreat. But she says they've made it this far without anyone getting seriously hurt, so she believes they'll find a way. Greg argues that once you hit level 4, you can play it safe and avoid high-risk fights. He's lost teammates before and doesn't want to go through it again. Tino tells him that even though he's been in the game for a long time, he still joined First Steps, probably because he wants to achieve something bigger. She thinks that's exactly why Cry picked him. She turns to Ruta and Gilbert and says this mission is Cry's way of helping them grow. Ruta, confused, asks why she was chosen, and Tino wonders if it's because of her massive cannons. Eventually, the team runs into the boss monster. Tino immediately notices that it doesn't have a helmet on and figures that's probably its weak spot. She quickly tells everyone to focus on stopping its movements while she prepares to go in for the kill. They all charge together, but the monster swats Greg like a fly and shatters his sword in the process. Just before the axe lands on him, Ruta dives in and pushes Greg out of harm's way. Tino doesn't hesitate. She leaps into the air, and even though the monster slashes her leg mid-jump, she still manages to stab it right in the neck and bring it down. After the fight, Tino gulps down a potion to patch up her leg. Greg stares at his broken sword, still stunned that it didn't survive the hit. Gilbert tries to cheer them up, saying they should just be glad they're alive. Tino hands Greg a spare weapon, but they barely have time to breathe. 4 more wolves suddenly show up and launch an attack. The group is shaken. None of them expected there to be more than one boss monster. Tino spots a route they can use to escape and points it out. But before they can move, one of the wolves blocks the path. Seeing no other option, Greg and Gilbert volunteer to hold off the wolves so Tino and Ruta can run. But Tino refuses to let anyone get left behind. Instead, she tells them to aim for the wolves' eyes. Gilbert rushes forward, taking a heavy blow as he blocks one of the monsters, while Greg goes for its legs with his sword. They get knocked back hard. Ruta jumps in, tossing her knives straight at the wolf's face. Then Tino remembers what Cry once taught her, how to use his ring relic. Activating it, she blinds the monster, giving Gilbert the perfect opening to strike. He charges in and attacks, but the wolf still throws him into a wall. He apologizes to Tino for acting on his own, but she tells him it was her fault for not giving clear orders. With the wolves closing in again, they all brace themselves, thinking this might be the end. Out of nowhere, Cry crashes into the battlefield, smashing one of the wolves straight into a wall. The creature staggers back up and lunges at him, but it's shocked when its attack bounces off a shield protecting Cry. He fires a huge energy blast from his ring relic, and Greg watches in awe. This is the strength of a level 8 hunter. But when the smoke clears, the wolf is completely fine. Cry frowns, realizing his rings aren't strong enough to deal with enemies like this. He is confused. The wolves are carrying weapons now, and he just wants to get everyone out alive. He pulls out a vial to summon Citri's slime, a powerful backup relic, but it's empty. Thinking fast, he uses a relic to create a smoke screen and yells at everyone to run. As they escape, Ruta watches Cry limping and assumes he's slowing down to match Tino's pace because she's injured. But in reality, he's just a terrible runner. Tino also believes he's protecting her, and she flashes back to when they first met, back when she was nearly kidnapped, and the grieving souls showed up just in time to save her. From that moment on, she looked up to them like heroes. They finally shake the wolves and get to safety. Ruta thanks Tino, saying they wouldn't have made it without her. Cry apologizes for putting them in such a risky situation. He uses a healing relic to fix up Tino's leg and tells the group they should be thinking about finding a way out, not looking for any more fights. But in truth, he's clueless and has no idea where they even are. We cut to a flashback of Cry showing off all the random relics he bought to his friends. They're excited at first, and Liz asks him to pick one for her. But Luke interrupts, saying he should choose something for everyone. Citri points to a bag she likes, and Cry tells her it's a magic bag that can hold an unlimited amount of stuff. She thinks it must have been expensive, but he admits it was cheap because it only holds chocolates. Liz tries on a bracelet but suddenly collapses. Cry explains it's a labyrinth ring that messes up your sense of balance. Luke grabs a sword that looks cool but starts to lose control of his mind. Turns out it's cursed. They all laugh, realizing every relic Cry bought is total garbage, but they decide to keep them as training gear anyway. Back in the present, Cry wonders why he's the one leading the group when he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks maybe Tino or Ruta should take over since they're both thief class and better with directions. Gilbert asks if they're going the right way, but Tino tells him that figuring out Cry's plan is part of their training. Then she shocks everyone by revealing that they're not heading to the exit, they're on a different path entirely. She memorized part of the map before they left and realized that the only way out is actually through the boss room. Ruta, even though she suspects Cry is just winging it, asks him where they're going. Cry still has no clue. He thinks maybe they should turn back, but the rest of the team rushes ahead. Tino tells him this is exactly why they trust him. Confused, Cry looks around and is stunned to see they've stumbled onto the missing group, Rudolph and the other level 5 hunters. The rescued group thanks them, but Tino says all credit goes to Cry for guiding them. Ruta gives out potions, but the others are exhausted and need food. Cry opens his chocolate-only magic bag and starts handing out sweets. Greg admits that when he first heard a level 5 squad had gone missing, he thought it was a joke. Rudolph explains they didn't expect the enemy to be so powerful. Gilbert is puzzled. Those wolves were tough, sure, but not unbeatable. That's when Rudolph drops the bomb. They weren't taken down by multiple phantoms. It was one, and it had a skull face. Everyone freezes. Rudolph says it's probably the curse of the Silver Moon, a vengeful spirit formed from the wolves that were hunted into extinction. Their lingering hatred turned into an insanely powerful phantom. He says the one they fought might be as strong as Thousand Swords himself. Cry silently scoffs at the idea. His friend Luke, Aka Thousand Swords, mastered every sword style, and is so broken he can slice enemies in half with a wooden stick. Cry doesn't believe any phantom could match that. Ruta asks what the plan is, and Cry says they should all just leave the vault. But he adds that since Tino is technically in charge of the mission, they'll go with whatever she decides, mostly because he's scared to lead. Tino agrees they should get out. Her leg's healed now, and she's ready to run. Cry tells her to watch out for the others, but he's really just worried about keeping up since he's the slowest in the group. As they near the exit, Rudolph says he'll stay behind to buy time if the phantom attacks again. But Tino refuses to let him sacrifice himself. She believes that as long as Cry is with them, they'll all be okay. Cry, meanwhile, knows he can only save one person if things go bad, and that's Tino. He checks his safety rings and realizes he only has 5 left. If he gets hit 5 more times, he's done. He doesn't have any more relics to fall back on. Just then, the wolves start howling, and the phantom appears right in front of them. But before they can react, a second one shows up, and suddenly kicks the first phantom straight into the wall. Everyone's stunned. That second phantom pulls off her mask. It's Liz. Cry recognizes her immediately and tells her to take the mask off. The others are confused about who she is, but Liz is offended they don't know her, especially since they're with his team. She says she came to the capital looking for Cry, but Eva told her he went to the wolf den. She's furious with Tino, her own student, for struggling against such a weak enemy. Gilbert tries to jump in, but Liz launches him like a rocket. Then she turns back to Tino, who drops to her knees, completely crushed. Liz scolds her harshly, yelling that she's not strong enough. Tino apologizes, but Cry steps in and says she actually did great. She completed the mission. He tells Liz to cut her some slack. Suddenly, the phantom returns and summons a wolf with a literal Gatling gun. Liz gets ticked off. She feels insulted that this monster thinks it can beat her with something so basic. The wolf fires, but Liz dodges every bullet with ease and even snatches a few out of the air. She mocks the attack, calling it outdated junk, and then explodes the wolf by jumping on it from above. The phantom charges at her with its sword, but Liz grabs it mid-swing and starts wrecking it like a punching bag, all while still yelling at Tino for being weak. Tino starts tearing up. Cry watches and smiles a little. He remembers how Rudolph thought the phantom was on Luke's level, but in truth, every member of the Grievers is insanely powerful. That's because they all pushed each other to the limit growing up. Everyone finally returns to the capital. Gilbert tells Cry he wants to give him the Purgatory Sword because he plans to restart from scratch and go train with his old team. Greg tells him to apologize for how he acted in the past. Gilbert agrees and asks everyone to thank Cry for everything. He says one day, he hopes he can be strong enough to catch bullets like Liz. They all laugh, telling him that's not gonna happen. Tino adds that their masks are specially made anyway. Then we flash back to when Cry first ordered the masks for the squad, only to realize he forgot to include holes for the eyes. But the others wore them anyway, thinking Cry did it on purpose to make them stronger by fighting blind. Back in the present, Cry is freaking out of his mind as he flips through every corner of his room, trying to find that dangerous slime. but no matter how hard he searches, it's nowhere. Eventually, he tells himself to forget about it, maybe he's just overthinking. A flashback takes us back to a year ago. Citri, the group's genius alchemist, had handed him a mysterious vial containing a dangerous slime. She asked him to hold on to it. When he casually tried to open it, Citri yelled at him to stop, warning that letting it loose could literally destroy the capital. That was the moment Cry realized just how deadly it really was. Now, he's panicking again. He remembers that when he tried using it back in the wolf den, the vial had been completely empty. He tells himself it must still be in his personal vault, a sealed storage that's impossible to break out of. But the more he thinks, the more he suspects the vial might have been empty the whole time. Maybe Citri was just pulling one of her twisted pranks. Even so, that gut feeling won't go away. The next morning, Cry wakes up groggy and drained. The worry from last night hasn't left him. As he stumbles into the hallway, he runs into Eva, who tells him that the Explorers Association wants a full report about what happened in the wolf den. Cry shrugs it off and says Tino was the one in charge, so she should write it. Eva replies that Tino's busy, she's getting destroyed in training by Liz. Still thinking about the slime, Cry casually asks if anything strange has been happening in the city. Eva doesn't know what he's getting at, so he brushes it off and heads toward the training grounds to check on Tino himself. After he leaves, Eva quietly reflects. Lately, strange things have been happening all over the capital. Odd incidents, unexpected monsters, vanishing relics, and yet, somehow, Cry always seems to sense it ahead of time. When Cry arrives at the training area, he finds Sven, the leader of the Obsidian Cross Party, waiting outside. Sven tells him to stop Liz before she kills Tino. Cry thinks he's overreacting, until he opens the door and sees Liz standing over Tino's collapsed body, looking disappointed. Liz stares down at Tino, clearly frustrated. "This is all you've got," she says. She lifts her arm, ready to go for another strike, but Cry jumps in and tells her to cool it. Liz mutters that Tino has more natural talent than she ever did, yet for some reason, she's still too weak. Just then, Tino grabs onto Liz's leg and says she can still keep going. And somehow, that's enough to continue the insane training session. Cry sighs, knowing he can't stop them when they're like this. Sven updates him. The northern route has been shut down after a multi-phantom attack. That reminds Cry of how off things felt at the wolf den. Maybe that's why Gark from the association wanted to meet. Cry wishes Ark were back in the capital so he could dump all of this on him. Since he's not, Cry decides to stall. He sends Sven to meet Gark in his place, claiming he's too busy. As Sven walks off, his teammate Henrik asks why Cry never goes out on missions. Sven tells him he's still new, so he doesn't get it. Cry looks lazy, but he's no joke, Sven says. Don't judge the guy by his vibe, he's a monster. Meanwhile, over at the association, Gark is deep in thought. He's still trying to figure out the strange energy at the wolf den. Cry is the only one who's been there recently, so Gark suspects he's hiding something. At a hidden lab in the shadows of the capital, we meet Noctis, a mage working with the Akashic Tower. He's surprised to hear that someone like Cry might be catching on to their operations. He doesn't want to take chances, so he calls in his right-hand enforcer, Sophia. We learn that the Akashic Tower mages have secretly been draining the energy from the vault's ley lines. Their goal is to create artificial vaults for experimentation and control. It's high-risk, high-reward magic, and incredibly illegal. That night, Cry wakes up in cold sweat from a nightmare. In the dream, the missing slime went berserk and set the entire capital on fire. But when he opens his eyes, he finds Liz lying beside him in bed. She casually asks if he's free, and Cry, too tired to resist, says yeah. Later, Gark arrives at the First Steps headquarters, but Liz immediately tells him to get lost. She doesn't want him ruining her time with Cry. They start fighting like children, so Cry quietly slips away to chat with Kaina, Gark's assistant. Kaina asks if he saw anything unusual in the vault, and Cry says there were more important things on his mind. She tries to press him for answers, but he refuses to bring up the slime and tells her to just ask Gark instead. Back at the sparring match, Liz mocks Gark for being out of shape. Gark, tired of the disrespect, decides to remind her why people used to call him the War Demon. We find out he used to be a top-ranked level 7 hunter. But before things get messy, Cry steps in again and says the meeting is over. Liz shrugs and gets ready to leave. Eva walks in and nearly has a heart attack when she sees the damage from their little scuffle. Later, Cry and Liz stroll through the city. She tells him that she and the rest of the Grievers recently tackled a level 8 vault called the Night Palace. Cry asks how the monsters there compared to the boss they fought at the Wolf Den. But Liz doesn't even remember it. Too weak, she says. Suddenly, Liz tackles a random man on the street, accusing him of spying on them. Cry gets her to let him go and apologizes. The man bolts. Liz assumes Cry let him off as part of some elaborate plan, but Cry is just clueless. We follow the man as he escapes. He panics, thinking Cry was warning him on purpose. What he knows, and Cry doesn't, is that the ice cream shop up ahead is actually the secret entrance to the Akashic Tower's research lab. As the man prepares to shut the shop down, Sophia arrives and asks what's going on. Before he can answer, Liz shows up and bangs on the door. No one answers, so she decides to break it open. Cry stops her and says maybe they just ran out of ice cream. Liz isn't convinced. She still smells something sweet inside, but he talks her into leaving. Back at the guild office, Liz is grumpy about missing dessert, but Cry is still too preoccupied with the slime to care. He asks if Citri's back from the Night Palace, and Liz offers to help instead. But Cry insists he needs Citri specifically. Only she has the knowledge to deal with whatever's going on. Eva arrives and tells him that the investigation at the Wolf Den is ready to begin. Sven's team is already in position, and a relic specialist is being sent in too. Cry is just happy he doesn't have to go himself. He trusts Eva to handle it. Elsewhere, in the Akashic Tower's main chamber, the mages hold an emergency meeting. They've figured out Cry has discovered their hidden base. Flick, one of the higher-ups, suggests staying calm. Since they don't know what Cry is planning, they should wait. Noctis asks Sophia for her thoughts. Everyone is stunned when she says they should attack first. Flick reminds her that Cry is level 8. He's not someone you pick a fight with lightly. But Sophia thinks this is the perfect chance to test their lab's security. If they wipe out Cry's group, there won't be anyone left to stop them. Noctis isn't thrilled, but he lets her do whatever she wants. He knows Cry has already caught on, so escaping unnoticed isn't an option anymore. Meanwhile, Tino is walking through town when she notices a huge crowd of hunters gathering at the guild. One of them tells her that they're working with the association to check out the Wolf Den. She thinks it's overkill, but the guy explains that Cry wanted Ark to lead the mission. Since Ark's away, and he's one of the strongest level 7 hunters around, they had to bring in extra muscle to make up for it. Cry and Eva arrive soon after. Cry is surprised by how many people showed up. Eva says they're all replacements for Ark. Cry immediately worries about how expensive this is going to be. He suggests cutting the squad in half, but the hunters argue that if a threat required Ark, they'll need the full team. Eva says not to worry, Gark's helping pay for it. But Cry's main concern is that the missing slime might really be inside that vault. Liz shows up and jokes that she could handle the whole thing herself. She asks Cry to let her join, but he declines. He knows she'll only stir up trouble, and worse, she might drag Tino along, who's still recovering. Eva then turns to Cry and asks if he will lead the mission. The hunters cheer at the idea, but Cry passes again, saying Sven is better suited. He claims he has important business, but in truth, he plans to show up right before it's over and act like he helped. As the squad gets ready to leave, Liz insists on tagging along, but Cry tricks her by assigning her a made-up urgent task to keep her busy. Just before the team sets off, someone asks Cry if there's anything they should watch out for. Cry simply says, be careful around slime-type monsters. Everyone looks confused. Slimes don't normally appear in the Wolf Den. Back at the Akashic Tower, Noctis receives word that a team of hunters is approaching. His subordinates panic, but Sophia is confident. She says only Cry, Liz, and Citri are in the capital. She's not worried about Liz, they can neutralize her strength. Cry is dangerous, but without someone to support him, his strategy won't be enough. Noctis says the real threat is Citri, but Sophia assures him that the lab's defense system can shut down her alchemy. Still, she warns that Citri has been getting too close to their experiments, so it's time to take her out. Noctis agrees and gives Sophia full command. All other mages are ordered to follow her lead, because now it's only a matter of time before the real battle begins. Meanwhile, deep inside the Wolf Den, Sven and his team are cautiously exploring. Everything looks normal so far, which makes Henrik question why they even accepted the mission in the first place. He grumbles that it feels more like cleanup duty for one of Cry's messes, but Sven reminds him they didn't have much of a choice. It was a direct order from Gark himself, ignoring that would have meant serious consequences. Henrik continues to complain that this whole thing feels like a wild goose chase, but Sven tells him not to underestimate Cry. One day, he says, you'll understand just how good that guy really is. Right then, Sven receives a message, Cry's warning about the slime. Without hesitation, he tells Henrik to blow the emergency whistle. The loud blast echoes through the vault, alerting all teams to evacuate immediately. Some hunters think it's overkill. A guy named Jane scoffs at the idea, calling it a waste of time. It's just a slime, he says. You're panicking over nothing. but Sven shuts him down fast, explaining that Cry has this weird ability to sense things before they happen. He even recalls the time Cry made them bring weapons to a flower viewing, which ended up turning into a trap vault called the Prison Garden. Jane is stunned, and Sven casually reveals that he spends a ton of money on communication relics, just so he can get Cry's updates in real time. Elsewhere, Liz keeps following Cry around, pestering him. She wants to fight something big in front of him, just to show how strong she really is. Cry, already stressed, keeps dodging her requests until the mission's over. Then, Citri suddenly shows up. Liz is surprised to see her, asking why she's back so soon. Citri calmly says she had a gut feeling something bad was about to go down, so she came to help. Flashbacks show Citri's childhood with Cry. She always told him that since she wasn't strong like the others, she needed to fill in the gaps. That's how she ended up becoming the team's brilliant alchemist, not to fight, but to keep them all alive. Back in the present, Citri tells Cry that her slime evolved, and even though it's improved in ways she didn't expect, she still considers it a failed experiment. She reassures him that it won't harm them since she programmed it not to attack either of them. But she thinks the slime may have learned to open his vault and slipped out through the bath drain. She promises to clean up the mess, but warns him that if the slime continues to mutate, the entire investigation team might get wiped out. Back in the den, Sven finds out Cry and Liz won't be joining anytime soon, so it's all on him now. He gathers the other hunters and asks if anyone's had experience fighting slimes. Most of them laugh. Slimes are the weakest creatures out there. One guy even jokes that he probably stepped on one without noticing. Sven presses harder. Did anyone bring gear for fighting slimes? They begin listing slime weaknesses: salt, fire, magic, freezing. Jane gets annoyed and says they should stop panicking. He claims he'll handle the slime himself if one shows up. Sven mocks him, telling him to write down his next of kin so they know who to notify after he dies. Jane storms off, calling everyone crazy for trusting a guy like Cry, who didn't even show up. Then, a girl named Talia speaks up and introduces herself as an alchemist. Sven is surprised. He thought Citri was the only one. Talia explains she worked in Citri's lab, helping research slimes. She shows them a special compound, a drug she claims can kill any slime. Everyone feels more relaxed. Back at the Akashic Tower base, Noctis checks in with Sophia, who says there are fewer than 100 hunters, and most of them are rookies. She's confident they'll be easy to crush. Sven, meanwhile, prepares the strategy: secure the inner area of the vault, use whistles for signals, and keep support squads outside for rescue backup. At first, everything's calm. Some teams report spotting only a few wolf knights. Henrik admits he doesn't know Cry that well, but trusts Sven's call. Jane, still doubting everything, wanders deeper into the forest. He thinks if Ark had given the order, he'd take it seriously, but not Cry. Suddenly, he hears a rustling noise. He assumes it's a wolf, but is shocked to see two mages alongside a chained-up wolf knight, holding a syringe filled with glowing material. The mages talk about how Sophia is their master's favorite, even though she's useless at real magic. Jane charges in, managing to knock one mage out. The other retaliates with a fire spell, which he blocks with his shield, though his arm gets burned. The mages mention Cry, wondering if Jane was sent by him. He denies it. Then, they inject the wolf with the syringe. In seconds, the creature mutates into a massive slime-like phantom. The mages explain it's been corrupted using mana material, and is now drawn to the strongest energy source. The beast lets out a roar, alerting every hunter nearby. They rush over and find Jane badly injured. He confirms Cry was right, the slime is real. The giant monster emerges. Talia stares in horror, saying she's never seen a slime that big before. Sven notices it's moving slowly, and orders the casters to create a distraction. He tells everyone to aim for its legs, but even his own arrows bounce off. Henrik helps carry Jane to safety, and Jane explains how the wolf knight was turned into that thing. Sven realizes both weapons and magic are useless. One hunter yells, "What do we do now?" Sven responds, "Even if we can't beat it, we can't run either." He grabs the drug from Talia, who explains it'll cause the slime to self-destruct on contact. Sven distracts the monster and lures it into jumping. As it lands, he plants the vial beneath it. The slime touches the liquid, and nothing happens. Everyone freezes. The drug didn't work. Sven realizes this isn't just a slime, it's something worse. But another hunter reminds him that Cry didn't say it was a slime. He said it was slime-like. That's when Citri shows up. She explains that the creature has a magical shield, which is why nothing works. Cry had a hunch things would get dangerous, so he sent her ahead. She tells them this phantom's force field blocks both physical and magical damage, and it's converting its own body into energy using surrounding mana, and she's the biggest mana source here. As the slime targets her, Citri dodges every attack with ease. She gets close and tosses another chemical vial into the air. Sven fires an arrow, hitting the container mid-air. The slime is instantly vaporized. Gark suddenly arrives in full armor, shocking Sven. Citri casually explains Gark gave her a ride. She can't sprint like Rizz. At the Akashic Tower, Noctis is stunned. Citri just took down the demonized phantom like it was nothing. He remembers Sophia warning that Citri was the real threat. Later, Citri briefs the hunters. She explains that Noctis and the mages have been experimenting on phantoms to manipulate vaults. One hunter reminds her that Noctis was exiled from the capital. Citri confirms it. She did her homework. She believes the monster they fought was one of the tower's test subjects. Talia suggests there must be underground equipment powering these transformations. Citri agrees. That level of manipulation needs serious machinery. She warns there could be more of these creatures and admits she only had one dose of anti-mana solution left, which she just used. She says she's not a great fighter, but she's determined to help however she can, and believes they'll make it through if they stick together. Later, Henrik compliments Citri to Sven, who laughs and tells him not to be fooled. She's a powerful weakling, he says. She's part of the grieving souls. She'll survive, even if it means sacrificing you. Back at the Akashic Tower, Flick is furious. Sophia ordered the release of the demonized phantoms one by one, which he thinks only helps the hunters pick them off. He complains that she's just a researcher with zero battle experience. When they try to reach her, they get no response. Flick decides he's done waiting. If the leader is incompetent, the plan's doomed either way. He orders all phantoms to be unleashed at once, hoping to overwhelm the enemy with numbers. On the surface, the hunters capture more enemy mages and begin interrogating them. Citri asks if they're working for Noctis. She promises to keep them safe if they cooperate, but they stay loyal and refuse to talk. That's all the confirmation she needs. Citri pulls out a strange tube. The other hunters panic. That's a mind control drug. They shout, using that's a war crime. She drinks it herself and reveals it was just dyed water. In truth, she's immune to the real stuff, but it was enough to scare the mages. Suddenly, the rest of the demonized phantoms arrive. The mages smirk, expecting the hunters to panic. Sven turns to Citri. Any ideas? She explains that each phantom has multiple layers of magical protection. The only way to beat them is to figure out what kind of shield each one uses. As they prep to fight, Citri notices something strange. These phantoms are stronger and faster than before. She calls the shield bearers to the front and asks them to test the direction of the barrier. When contact is made, she yells at them to drop their shields, but one hunter ignores her and loses his arm. She quickly realizes the barrier is rotating, which lets the phantom dodge everything. Gark suggests waiting until the monster runs out of energy, but Citri says it would take over an hour, time they don't have. Suddenly, another phantom appears. Escape seems hopeless until Citri has a light bulb moment. She yells at everyone to stop attacking. To everyone's shock, the phantoms turn on each other. Citri explains that phantoms naturally absorb mana to survive. If hunters stop fighting, their only energy source is each other. Since they're all made of pure mana, they become targets themselves. The hunters watch in stunned silence as the enemy monsters start devouring one another, while the panicked mages look on, unable to comprehend how everything fell apart. Back at the Akashic Tower, things were tense. Noctis was mad at Flick and the others for going against Sophia's orders. Sophia stood up for herself, saying she might not be good in a fight, but her plans always have a reason. Noctis tried to stay calm and asked what they should do next. Sophia said now that Citri and Gark had joined the hunters, everything had changed. She didn't think they could run away anymore. She was also worried the captured mages might talk, and Citri would find their base. So, she said it was time to send out a monster called the Malice Eater to deal with Cry's group. Noctis warned it wasn't fully ready yet and someone would need to control it. She told Flick this was his time to prove himself. Meanwhile, Talia was watching Citri, feeling both amazed and jealous. She thought Citri was super smart and never gave up, but it also made her feel like she could never catch up. Sven noticed she looked upset and tried to cheer her up. He joked that maybe Cry should have told them it wasn't a normal slime, and also pointed out that the mages were staring at her, probably because of her red hair. Gark suggested they might have to retreat, but Citri surprised everyone by saying she had already found the enemy base. She explained how she figured it out by following the flow of magic. She asked the mages if she was right, they lied, which told her everything she needed. She said they needed to attack before Noctis got away. The mages shouted for Sophia, and Sven asked who that was. Citri said she was her rival and this time she was going to catch her for real. Cry and the others were getting close to the den. Cry looked annoyed because he wanted to show up after the fight, not before. Rizz told him to hurry because Citri might be in danger, but he thought if anyone was going to die, it'd be him. He didn't even bring any gear. It was too dark to see, and Tino tried to hold Cry's hand, but Rizz pushed her away. Back near the fight, Gain was hurt and regretting not trusting Cry earlier. Citri told him that even though Cry didn't seem strong, he was incredibly smart and could probably reach level 10 someday. Gain figured Cry must be some kind of super warrior, but Citri said even if Cry lost to a rabbit, it wouldn't matter. His brain was his real power. Suddenly, lightning struck and Flick showed up, riding the huge Malice Eater monster, thinking he had taken everyone down. But Citri was totally fine. She even pulled out a water gun filled with healing potion and revived Sven. Sven jumped up and knocked Flick out, but the monster was still dangerous. Just when it was about to finish him off, Gark stepped in and destroyed it in one hit. Noctis was disappointed because Flick ignored orders again and only brought one Malice Eater. Some of the mages started wondering if Cry had planned this all along. They thought about releasing all the monsters, but Noctis stopped them. He said they still had one last move, Sophia. Outside the enemy base, Citri and the others were ready to go in. Gark said he wanted to lead the charge to prove he wasn't washed up. Cry and Tino arrived late, and Rizz said she wanted to handle things before he got there. Citri saw the fight was nearly over, but the golem, Akashic, was still causing trouble. Noctis brought out the giant golem they'd been working on. It was super strong and hard to damage. Gark blocked its first hit, but the other hunters were struggling. Some of the escaped mages got away in the chaos. Gain wanted to run, but then Rizz showed up and blasted one of the monsters, giving the hunters hope. Cry, still hanging back with Tino, worried about not having Rizz to protect him. Tino felt something nearby, but Cry told her to ignore it. The mages watching were confused why Cry wasn't reacting at all. Rizz was wrecking monsters, and Citri was trying to figure out how to stop the golem. It was way stronger than it looked. Even after Gark froze its leg, it didn't fall. Rizz said her time was up just as Cry arrived. She wanted to finish the fight before he got there. The golem tried to attack Cry, who couldn't even see it in the dark, but it was suddenly blown away by something. No one knew what happened, especially not Cry. After the fight, the mages managed to escape, but all their tools and notes were taken. Citri thanked Cry and said she'd deal with her rival herself. The captured mages regrouped with Noctis and told him Sophia had snuck into the hunter team. Noctis couldn't figure out what she was up to and said it was time to leave the city. He ordered his team to call Sophia back. Back at the guild, Gark asked Cry what he knew, but Cry played dumb and told him to ask Citri. The officials didn't want to question her because a few years ago there was a prison break that had her name tied to it, though Gark had defended her. Later, Talia was brought before Noctis, and he told her to stop pretending. The monster growled at her, revealing she wasn't Sophia. The real Sophia then appeared, and said she wasn't real at all. She revealed she had always been Citri in disguise. Noctis was shocked. Citri explained Sophia never existed. She had made it all up to sneak into the Akashic Tower. She admired Noctis's talent but said it was time to stop. She admitted she leaked the truth to Cry and helped get strong hunters involved. She said she made the golem jump back because otherwise the battle would have caused too many deaths. Flick tried to send a Malice Eater to attack her, but it didn't work. Noctis hit her with fire, but her slime absorbed it. The mages panicked as Citri showed she had created something even stronger than the golem, a creature called Killium. It was a mix of different monsters, and she had used the prison break to collect the parts. Noctis said she was crazy, but Killium destroyed him. Later, Cry asked Citri what happened to Talia. Citri said she just lost some memories and that it was probably for the best. Cry had no idea what she meant, so he just nodded and moved on. After everything that happened, a meeting was held at the association to talk about the chaos. Cry helped Citri convince the officials to hand over one of the Malice Eater monsters and the golem from the earlier battle. One of the officials was confused. He thought a Malice Eater was a fancy drink, and everyone just stared at him, shocked. Once the meeting wrapped up, Citri thanked Cry for having her back. She managed to get one of the Malice Eaters and went off to pick it up. Cry was about to head out to the lobby, but Gark suddenly stopped him. He wanted to chat. Gark told him about a team called the Fallen Fog, a group of hunters from the mysterious land of Fog. Their leader was a guy named Arnold Hale. Cry had no clue who that was, so Gark explained Arnold was a level 7 hunter who once slayed a thunder dragon. Cry casually mentioned that he was also a dragon slayer, which made Gark laugh and warn him not to do anything dumb. As Gark patted him on the back, the tap shattered one of Cry's safety rings. Cry then spotted a poster for an auction featuring some rare and powerful relics. He really wanted to go, but remembered he was broke. He thought about borrowing money from Citri again, until he realized he never paid her back from last time. Meanwhile, Gark's niece, Chloe, walked over and asked Cry why her uncle seemed so happy. Cry casually said they were talking about Arnold, which shocked her. A few moments later, Arnold arrived at the association. Chloe greeted him like he was just some new guy, but his team freaked out, clearly not used to someone treating their leader like a regular dude. Later, Citri showed the Malice Eater she got to Cry and Eva. Eva asked if it was dangerous, but Citri said it was trained not to hurt them. But as soon as it jumped on Cry, it crushed another one of his safety rings. He realized it was way too dangerous to keep around. He knew he needed to recharge his relics, so he asked Citri when his sister Lucia would return. Citri said it might take a while because Lucia was helping someone named Luke fight a swordsman phantom deep in the Night Palace. To help Cry, Citri gave him a relic ring that stores a single magic spell, and reminded him that Lucia had given him one too. Meanwhile, the Fallen Fog crew was still upset that Chloe didn't recognize Arnold. They decided to prove they weren't to be looked down on just because they were outsiders. Back at the clan, Citri gave Cry a massage while he stressed about his drained relics. Citri knew only Lucia had the mana to charge them, but promised to come up with something. She ended up gathering some hunters and told them they were doing a new magic growth training that Cry invented. She claimed it could help them become as strong as Lucia. Sven was speechless. She asked for volunteers. 2 members of the Starlight Party, Chris and Lapis, stepped up. Chris got annoyed when Cry didn't greet Lapis, but Lapis told her to calm down. Cry may be weird, but he was still the clan leader. The Starlight Party was special. Its members were noble spirits, a rare type of long-living people with incredible magic. But they often looked down on weaker mages. Lapis didn't believe any training could make someone like Lucia, but Citri said Lucia got strong through hard work, not talent. Another girl named Mariette also joined in. Citri gave her one of Cry's rings to charge, and she was shocked at how much mana it required. After charging one, Citri handed her another, and soon Mariette passed out from exhaustion. Citri explained this was mana fatigue, dangerous, but it could raise someone's magic potential during recovery. Chris and Sven thought this was crazy, and Chris said that even noble spirits need lots of time to recover their mana. But Citri gave Mariette a special drink that made her scream, and her mana levels actually increased. Citri told everyone that repeating the cycle could make them all stronger. Lapis started to believe that maybe Lucia really did train like this. She admitted her group was trying to recruit Lucia, but Lucia didn't like their "we're better than everyone" mindset. Chris got annoyed and challenged Citri to give her all the relics to charge. As she began charging them, other hunters joined in too. Meanwhile, Ark was offered a job by a guy named Sandrine, but he turned it down, saying he still had a lot to learn from Cry. Sandrine brought up a man named Lord Gladys, whose daughter Claire was looking for Ark. She even appeared right behind him. Back at the clan office, Cry and Citri went to meet Liz, who was apparently showering. When Liz came out completely naked, Citri quickly blocked Cry's eyes and told her to put clothes on. Liz asked if he needed something, and Cry said he wanted to celebrate their return. Liz got excited and tried to hug him, but Citri kept her back. They all went to a bar, where Liz and Citri ended up in a drinking contest. Citri secretly slipped a potion into Liz's drink to get her drunk faster. Liz started yelling at her, but Citri just added more potion, pretending it was part of the challenge. Cry passed the drink to Citri instead, and now she got drunk too. While drunk, she started accusing Cry of using her for money, saying he owed her over 1 billion gild. She jokingly told him to pay her back with his body, but as she got close, Liz jumped between them. Then the Fallen Fog crew showed up, trying to look tough. Arnold demanded drinks, but Liz walked right up and poured booze over his head. When he got angry, she bashed him with a jug and beat up his whole team effortlessly. Back at the clan, Eva was worried. Even if the Fallen Fog members started it, Liz's actions might cause trouble. She said Arnold had a strong record. He really did beat a Thunder Dragon. Cry casually said that grilled Thunder Dragon tastes amazing and that Citri made it once. Eva was stunned. Thunder Dragon meat was super rare and valuable. She had never heard of anyone cooking it. The Fallen Fog group went to the association, and Chloe thought they came to file a complaint. But Arnold just asked for the name of the girl who hit them. Gark told him it was Liz and mentioned that he told Cry to keep her in check. Everyone was stunned when Gark said Cry was actually level 8. He told them not to worry, Cry wasn't a bully. If they left him alone, nothing bad would happen. But Arnold just looked even angrier. Meanwhile, Eva found out how much money Cry owed Citri and freaked out. Cry told her Citri gave him 3 ways to repay the debt. The first was jail time, but he said that was out because Citri hadn't done anything wrong. The other 2 options were either to marry her or have her marry him. Cry joked that marriage seemed like the only path left. Eva said he could slowly pay it off through the clan's income. Or, if he wanted to get the money fast, he could try looting a treasure vault, but he was way too scared for that. She said she'd make a plan to help him repay her and told him to stop racking up more debt. The Fallen Fog members went around asking about Cry. All they heard were random stories and rumors. When they told Arnold that Cry never even went to the vaults, Arnold figured Cry just hadn't met anyone strong enough to challenge him. They said nobody had ever seen Cry fight, so Arnold assumed he must be the tactics type, someone who only got strong thanks to others. Arnold convinced himself that Cry wouldn't stand a chance against someone who climbed to level 7 with pure skill and power. Tino caught up with Cry and offered to help with anything he needed. But when he asked if he could borrow some money, she looked disappointed. She's also broke and need cash too, for gear repairs and supplies, so she couldn't keep loaning him so much. But when he told her how much he already owed Citri, her brain nearly exploded. Then he said that if he couldn't pay Citri back, he'd just marry her, which made Tino lose it even more. While they were eating desserts, Tino suggested they check out a treasure vault. Since the city was holding an auction soon, relic prices would be high, and he might be able to sell something valuable. She believed he could find a vault full of rare relics, but Cry reminded her that if he had that kind of talent, he wouldn't have needed to borrow money from Citri in the first place. That's when they ran into the Fallen Fog party. The group looked ready to throw hands, but Cry told them he understood why they were mad, especially after Liz attacked them. He apologized on her behalf and even offered to kneel to make peace. He also said he didn't even have his weapon with him since he was just out with Tino, so fighting now wouldn't be fair. They wouldn't get any satisfaction beating him when he wasn't going all out. Tino jumped in and said the truth was, Cry didn't want to crush them too badly and hurt their pride. Cry tried to calm her down, but she just kept making the situation worse. Seeing no way out, Cry started calling for help by gathering a crowd, hoping some of his clan members would show up. But nobody did. Arnold noticed and said all the rumors about Cry being mysterious must be true. He claimed Cry only made it to level 8 thanks to his friends. Tino got fired up and asked Cry if she could fight. Everyone was shocked when he gave her the green light. She launched herself at Arnold and started swinging, but he blocked all of her moves without even trying. Cry was still scanning the crowd for backup when the Fallen Fog members told him to focus since Tino was fighting for him. Cry finally gave her a cheer, which just annoyed Arnold more. Tino managed to land a kick, but it didn't do anything. Arnold grabbed her head and slammed it into the ground, furious that Cry sent someone so weak to face him. Cry realized things were getting out of control, so he activated a pendant that held Lucia's magic. It unleashed a super strong gravity spell, knocking out the Fallen Fog, but Tino got caught in it too. Afterward, Cry told Arnold that if he really wanted to fight him, he'd have to defeat the top 3 teams in their clan first. Tino apologized, thinking she had let Cry down, but he said it was his own fault for misjudging the situation. She was still determined to prove herself, though, and asked him where she could find a treasure vault to repay his debt with relics. Meanwhile, Liz was sparring with a fake golem made by Citri but wasn't impressed. She wanted the real one, but Citri told her it was with the investigation team. Citri then mentioned Tino's fight with Arnold and said it must have been rough. Liz asked if they should get involved with the Fallen Fog, but Citri said only if Cry asked for it. Later, Cry met Chloe. He said he didn't really get why Arnold and his party were so mad at him. Chloe explained it was because Cry kept forgetting Arnold even existed, despite him being a level 7 hunter. She asked what Cry thought of Arnold, and he casually said Arnold probably liked girls with big chests, since he ignored Liz. We also find out that Chloe once tried to become a hunter but failed her entrance test after getting crushed by Luke. She quit and became a receptionist instead. She asked Cry why he told her she had potential if she was going to fail anyway. He said she should already know the answer. He also said that while she could probably pass the test now, she shouldn't, because she already found her true place at the association. After he left, Cry thought back to the real reason Chloe didn't pass 3 years ago. It was just because she was too young back then. If he let her in, Gark would have killed him. Chloe, meanwhile, thought maybe Cry was testing her with some sort of secret life lesson. She believed he was making her find the answer herself and promised to keep doing her best until she figured it out. Back with Arnold, he lost it after Chloe told him what Cry said about him liking girls with big chests. One of his teammates told him to calm down and not take the bait, but Arnold was fuming. He didn't understand what Cry was trying to prove by making them fight the top teams of his clan. Just then, a member returned after trying to challenge those teams and said they all turned the offer down. Arnold was even more annoyed, but they decided to check out the auction instead to find some good equipment or maybe sell a weird relic that nobody wanted back in the land of fog. Meanwhile, Cry and Tino visited a man named Matthijs to show him a relic Tino had found. Matthijs said it looked like an outer relic, possibly from a super high-level relic group. Cry was pumped and wanted to know what it did, but Matthijs said it couldn't be identified unless it was activated, and he'd need time to study it since he was swamped with auction appraisals. While he and Tino chatted, he let Cry browse the relic collection. Matthijs told Tino she reminded him of his granddaughter, and advised her to lean on her friends when things get tough. He even said Cry, despite being weird, could be helpful sometimes. Tino said she admired Cry and felt like she wasn't good enough compared to him. That made Matthijs yell at Cry, wondering what nonsense he had been teaching her, but Cry was too distracted checking out relics. He found one called Reverse Face, a relic that could change someone's appearance. The one he had before got destroyed by Rizz, and he really wanted another so he could walk around unnoticed. Matthijs told him to get lost since he was busy, but Cry begged him to contact the relic's owner so he could make a direct offer. Afterward, Tino asked how Cry planned to afford it. He explained that relics like this weren't even allowed in stores since they could be used for crimes, so he had to jump on the chance. Tino mentioned Citri was running low on money because she had been funding her research and giving out her expensive potions to mages for free. Tino said if the relic they got appraised sold for a lot, it could solve all his problems, but Cry considered keeping it if it turned out to be rare. As they walked, they spotted a fancy carriage with a noble symbol. Tino said it belonged to the Earl's family and was confused why they were in town. Nobles usually hated hunters. Inside, they saw Claire meeting with Ark. She said she wanted to see where Ark spent his time and admitted that while she hated hunters, she liked Ark for his serious personality. She noticed Cry staring at her and told him to knock it off. Tino got mad, but Cry stopped her. Ark introduced Cry to Claire. She said her dad told her about him but couldn't believe Cry had a higher rank than Ark. She assumed Cry bought his level with money and called him rude. When he didn't talk back, she asked why. Cry said he was raised without manners, so he was just trying to act polite. After she left, Cry asked Ark for money. Ark refused, guessing Cry had found another rare relic. When Cry said he couldn't explain what it did, Ark told him no deal. Cry went around asking others for cash, and rumors spread across the city that he was trying to buy a super rare relic. With no other options, Cry went back to Citri and apologized for needing more money, even though he hadn't paid her back. Citri said that's just how things had always been between them. She told him her research might be delayed, but she'd sold off extra materials to get the money. If that wasn't enough, she said she'd even take out a loan from the bank to help him. But when Cry finally found out who owned the relic, he was stunned. It belonged to the Fallen Fog. Arnold's teammate explained that the mask they brought from the land of fog was super rare, so they weren't going to sell it for cheap. But Citri took one look at it and said it looked creepy. Arnold's side still wanted to auction it, but Citri warned that nobles only pay big money for relics that look cool, and that ugly ones like this usually don't sell for much. Arnold pointed out that no one even knew what the relic did, so it was hard to price it. But he guessed Cry must know something about it since he was trying so hard to buy it. Cry didn't explain anything. He just said the relic was dangerous and had been banned by law, so they were better off letting it go. That only made Arnold more suspicious. He started wondering if Cry was trying to trick them into keeping a cursed relic so it would backfire on them later. Arnold eventually gave up on figuring it out and offered to sell the mask for 10 million gild. He figured that was the smartest move, since they didn't know how to use it and falling into Cry's possible trap was worse. He thought he had the upper hand, until Cry casually turned to Citri and asked if the price was too low. Citri smirked and said, "They're the ones who made the offer." Right then, a bunch of hunters jumped into the bidding war. One after another started throwing out higher numbers. But what really blew everyone's minds was when Claire offered 100 million for it. Everyone went silent. Eva rushed over to Cry and said people now believed the relic was the most powerful one ever, just because Cry had been borrowing money everywhere to get it. Cry sighed and said it was really just for hiding his identity. Eva told him to stop digging his debt deeper, but then Citri walked in with 800 million gild. She casually said she had been saving it for their future wedding. Eva freaked out and accused her of spoiling Cry too much, and the two of them started arguing. After that, Cry and Citri went to talk with Claire. She said she admired Cry's guts for being so bold, claiming he had more confidence than even Ark. But Cry joked that the only thing he had more of than Ark was his level. He told her people sometimes said they were rivals, but that wasn't true. He considered Ark a friend, and they were on totally different levels. Claire didn't like the way that sounded and pulled out her sword. She assumed Cry had only reached level 8 by collecting relics, not through real strength. She declared that she would win the mask and give it to Ark to help him become the strongest. Cry warned her that Ark wouldn't want it, because relics don't make someone strong. Claire started crying and shouted that no matter what, she would get that relic. Citri pointed out that Claire might be from a noble family, but even she had a spending limit. Citri knew Claire's max budget was 100 million, and she let her know that their budget was 200 million. She told Claire to give up unless she could beat that. Claire ran to her father to explain the situation. He said the Gladys family couldn't afford to back down now, it would damage their reputation. He asked his advisor, Monter, how much they could spend. Monter said they could pull 500 million from family funds and take a 500 million loan from a company, though the interest would be high. Claire figured she just needed more than 200 million to win, but Monter reminded her that nobody ever reveals their real budget, and Cry was definitely hiding his. Her dad ordered her to win the auction no matter what. Citri, meanwhile, revealed their actual limit, 950 million, but even she wasn't sure if it'd be enough. Cry told her she'd already done more than enough. Liz joked that she'd just steal the relic if they lost, but Citri warned her not to, since Cry would be blamed for it. When they reached the auction, they joined up with Tino and the others. Cry noticed that everyone was watching him closely, eager to see what this ultimate relic was. So he asked Tino to bid for him, just in case. As the auction began, Liz asked when the mask would be revealed. Cry said it'd be the final item since it had attracted so much attention. He was a bit sad because he couldn't bid on any of the other cool stuff or he'd risk losing the mask. Then a sword came up for bidding. Tino looked at him for a signal, and Cry fought hard not to give in to his urge to bid. He reminded himself this was only for emergencies. But when more cool relics came out, he nearly lost it. He almost raised his hand, but stopped himself, thinking of what Citri would say. Then he thought, she'd forgive me, and got ready to bid wildly. But the next item was the Akashic Golem, a relic Citri really wanted. She told him not to worry about it, since spending on the golem would mean they couldn't afford the mask. But Cry could tell how badly she wanted it, so he made a choice, he'd win it for her. The bidding hit 300 million. Citri got nervous. Cry thought, well, it's all her money anyway. The bid kept rising until it hit 500 million. Cry still didn't back down. Then, to everyone's shock, he offered 950 million, their entire budget, and he still got outbid. The golem ended up selling for 1.6 billion. And the buyer, Cry. He won it thanks to a secret trump card, a massive check from his sister, Lucia. Afterward, he wondered if using her entire savings was a terrible idea. He chatted with Tino after the win. Gilbert asked what Cry planned to do about the mask now that he'd blown all his money. But Cry said he already achieved his real goal, getting the golem for Citri, so he planned to head home early. The auction for the mask started, and Claire remembered she promised to give it to Ark. That gave Cry an idea. The next day, he met with Ark and asked him to go visit Claire. He warned Ark that the relic she bought might be dangerous. Ark's friend thought Cry was being too cryptic, but Ark decided to trust him and left his weapon behind, just like Cry suggested. Meanwhile, Claire was feeling down. She told her dad she won the auction, but it felt empty. Monter said Cry probably left early on purpose, meaning he never really wanted the relic in the first place. She stared at the mask, feeling defeated, but then it suddenly spoke. The mask floated into the air and asked her if she wanted power. Then it flew at her and merged with her. Later, Ark visited the Gladys family and learned Claire had locked herself in her room. Suddenly, they heard a loud crash. When they rushed in, Claire had already changed. The mask was fused to her, and she threw a guard across the room. Ark thanked her for winning the relic and asked her to hand it over, but when she saw his sword, she went berserk. Ark remembered Cry's warning not to bring his weapon. He quickly ordered his party to get ready, but told them not to hurt Claire. She refused to lose to anyone and charged at Ark with her sword. At the same time, the Fallen Fog group celebrated selling the mask for 200 million. But they were met by Liz and Citri. The girls explained that the whole thing had been part of Cry's plan, and now they wanted a cut of the profit. Arnold's teammate thought they were joking, but Citri offered them an antidote. For 110 million, she asked if they noticed anything strange about their drinks. Suddenly, the entire group started to feel sick. Arnold realized he had no other option but to pay. Back at the clan office, Cry threw a party to thank Ark. Ark handed the mask to Cry as a gift. Cry was pumped to finally try out the reverse face relic. He put it on immediately. The mask clamped onto his face, scanned his stats, then declared he was too weak and had zero ambition. It rejected him on the spot and flew off. Cry stood there, stunned. It wasn't the reverse face after all, but something even rarer since it could talk. Claire, who had been possessed by it earlier, handed it over to Cry, saying it was his now. Citri and Liz came back with the money, and everyone enjoyed the party. But as Cry looked around at all the happy faces, he remembered something. The mask had activated for Claire, and he felt pathetic. Even Claire, someone who lost control of it, was stronger than him. And that's where this video ends. Watch this following video and I'll see you in the next one.